My name's Jack Reese. I'm 53. I've lived in Cincinnati my whole life. And up until 6 months ago, I would have told you the worst thing that ever happened to me was already behind me. I would have been wrong. If you're new here, hit subscribe, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and get comfortable. This one's going to take you somewhere. The private dining room at that venue out in Indian Hill smelled like rosemary and money. Thick white tablecloths, votive candles lit in broad daylight, because apparently ambiance doesn't care what time it is when you're spending someone else's trust fund. I sat at the end of the table, across from my daughter Lauren and her fiancé's family, the Werners, old Cincinnati money, the kind with a country club membership older than most marriages. My ex-wife Helen sat 2 seats down, laughing too loud at nothing. Her husband, Aiden, had his arm draped over her chair like he owned the room. Man talks about portfolio diversification like he's ever had a portfolio worth diversifying. 25 years I raised that girl. 25 years. And I'm the guy sitting at the end of the table like an afterthought. A server set down braised short rib, and I reached for my water glass. That's when I saw Lauren's eyes drop to my hand. The skin on the back of it doesn't look like skin anymore. Tight, shiny, pulled into ridges like wax that melted wrong. 20 years of people staring, and I never really got used to it. Lauren's face did this little flinch, like she'd bitten into something sour. "Dad," she said, quiet at first, then leaning in like she'd rehearsed it. "I love you, but look at your hands. They're rough. They're scarred. They're going to ruin the pictures." She gestured at Aiden like she was doing a car commercial. "He's got nice hands. He wears a ring well. The groom's family is very high society, and I don't want things to be awkward." A breath, then the knife twisted slow. "He's walking me down the aisle. You can sit in the back row." Nobody said a word. Aiden had the decency to look uncomfortable. Helen didn't. She looked relieved, like a weight had come off her. I looked at my hand wrapped around that glass. I wish I could tell you I said something sharp, something that put her in her place. I didn't. I nodded. I stood up. I folded my napkin once, the way my mother taught me, and walked out without saying a single word. You built her a life with these hands, and she just told a room full of strangers they were an embarrassment. I sat in traffic on 71 South for 45 minutes, radio off, staring at my hand on the wheel, the way you look at something after someone tells you it's ugly. I didn't cry, I want that on the record, but something sat in my chest the whole ride home, heavy and useless. Back at my one-bedroom off Erie Avenue, I ended up on the floor of my office, an old shoebox of photos in my lap. First one on top, Lauren, 9 years old, vanilla ice cream in one hand, mine in the other, both of us grinning outside Aglamesis Brothers. And it all came back. Every Saturday after my shift at the hydraulic plant in Norwood, she'd come tearing across the yard yelling, "Daddy," like I'd been gone a year. Ice cream, then I'd hoist her onto my shoulders so she could wave at the guys on the loading dock. "There's my hero," she'd shout, ice cream dripping onto my collar. My buddy Larry used to tell me that girl was going to run this city someday. I believed him. I had no idea one of those Saturdays would be the last normal one. Payroll had messed up my check, so I brought Lauren into the plant with me. She was drawing at a break room table when I heard a deep metal groan, then a bang I felt in my teeth. A hydraulic line had ruptured, pressurized, scalding, chemical-treated fluid blasting out like a fire hose made of acid. I didn't think. I moved. I got to that table in 2 seconds and threw myself over her, back to the blast, arms wrapped around her face. It caught me across the back, the arms, mostly the hands, because that's what I had wrapped around my daughter. Larry pulled her out from under me. Not one drop touched her. Not one single mark. I'd do it again, 1,000,000 times over. That was never the question. The question nobody bothered to ask for 15 years was what it would cost me after. Helen filed for divorce 4 months later. Sitting across from her in a lawyer's office, my hands still bandaged, still learning to hold a fork, she wouldn't even look at them. "You brought her to that plant, Jack. You're reckless. I can't trust you not to put her in danger again." She knew exactly what I'd done. That's what made it so much worse. This wasn't ignorance. This was guilt-wearing anger like a mask. Because it's easier to be furious at someone than to sit with the fact that you weren't the one who saved your kid. She got full custody. My time with Lauren melted away like ice you don't notice until you're standing in the puddle. And somewhere in those years, Helen started rewriting the story. Lauren telling a teacher her dad got hurt because he wasn't careful. Lauren at 13 asking why I let that happen. 15 years of Helen's version, every single day, against my every other weekend. She turned proof of how much I loved my daughter into evidence against me, and I never saw her do it. The lawsuit against the plant took 3 years and I won big, a settlement that could have changed everything. I never touched a dime. My own attorney thought I'd lost my mind, but Helen's voice was still in my head. Reckless. And spending that money on myself felt like proof she was right. So I locked every dollar into a discretionary spendthrift trust, set to release at Lauren's milestones, 25th birthday, wedding, a house of her own someday. Then I went back to work, precision machine trade, same one-bedroom apartment, same beat-up Chevy Malibu I fixed myself. Let people think I was cheap. The truth was, I was saving every dollar for a girl who could barely stand to look at me by then. Helen remarried when Lauren was 17. Aiden Hill, always in a blazer, leased luxury cars he swapped every 2 years, calling himself a commercial businessman, which in my experience means a man who's never had 2 nickels of his own to invest anywhere. He couldn't touch the trust. I kept that locked down tight. But he could work on Lauren's future. Access to it. Talked her into signing paperwork that used her upcoming distribution as collateral on a commercial loan for some business venture that never quite existed the way he described it. Told her it was routine. Told her it was safe. She was desperate to impress the family she was marrying into, so she signed. Sitting on my office floor with that old photo in my hand, I let myself remember what it felt like before any of it. Before the hospital, before the lawyers, before a room full of strangers watching my daughter call my hands in embarrassment. My phone rang. Unknown number, Cincinnati area code. Becky, the venue's events coordinator, apologizing for the late call. The automated wire transfer from my attorney's office had failed, the funding source was blocked, and Lauren's mother said I'd handle it. Is everything all right? She asked. I almost laughed. No, I said. Everything is not all right. Then, cancel the booking. All of it. She stammered about the $40,000 non-refundable deposit. I told her I knew. I hung up. I didn't call Lauren. I didn't call Helen. I sat in the dark with a 10-year-old photograph and let the silence talk for me. That was the first time in 15 years I felt like I had control of anything. Not rage, not revenge, not yet. Just a man finally putting his hand up and saying, "No more." She found out the next morning. Dad, what did you do? No. Are you okay? No apology for the tasting table. Just, what did you do to me? My wedding. You told me to sit in the back row, I said. I'm just giving you a little more room back there. You're being cruel. No, sweetheart, I'm being finished. Here's what you need to understand about a discretionary spendthrift trust. It's a legal vault. Every dollar runs through me. Aiden had convinced Lauren to sign a stack of paperwork using her future payouts as collateral. But a bank won't accept a discretionary trust as collateral unless the trustee signs off. So Aiden forged my signature. He was banking on wedding gifts to clear the debt before anyone noticed. Monday, I called my attorney and froze every wedding distribution. By Wednesday, the florist, the DJ, the caterer all hit insufficient funds walls. I also pulled the trust backing off the bridge loan Helen and Aiden were using to live past their means. Instead of calling to ask what was happening, Helen went public. Ring light, kitchen island, tears on cue, tagging local Cincinnati groups and the Werner family's business pages. My daughter's biological father is holding her wedding hostage out of jealousy, she said, pinning a comment threatening lawyers. The internet did what it does, strangers calling me a monster. But Helen made a fatal mistake. Tagging the Werners dragged a family that thrives on privacy straight into a messy public brawl. She thought she was weaponizing them against me. Instead, she guaranteed they'd cut her loose. Then the trap snapped shut on its own. The bounced bridge loan payment flagged the bank's compliance department. An auditor pulled Aiden's commercial loan file, looked at the forged guarantee signature, and called my attorney to verify it. David told them the truth. Jack Reese never signed this. By Wednesday afternoon, it wasn't a family dispute anymore. It was a federal bank fraud investigation. Aiden's accounts froze, his loan came due immediately, and the penalty clauses tripled their mortgage payment overnight. 30 days to pay or vacate. I won't pretend there wasn't a small, ugly human part of me that felt something like satisfaction. Mostly, though, I just felt tired. I went to work at the machine shop in Blue Ash. I sat alone at the counter at Skyline some nights with a three-way and a coney, just to remember what normal felt like. My neighbor Killian kept me updated on the online fallout. I refused to check myself, including that the smear video eventually got deleted. "You all right?" she asked me once. "I will be," I told her, and for the first time in a long while, I believed it. Then came the text from Helen's sister Peggy, someone I hadn't heard from in a decade. "Jack, you need to see this. Call me." Aiden was gone. The second the fraud flag hit, he packed a bag and vanished without a word to Helen. She woke up to an empty closet, and federal investigators serving a warrant at her door. A total coward, running the moment the money dried up. The house had a notice of default, 30 days before foreclosure. The Verners found out the same week. A stepfather under federal scrutiny, a smear campaign gone sideways, a canceled venue, a frozen trust that had clearly funded the whole lifestyle. None of that plays well at the country club. The groom's family issued a clean, lawyered statement wishing Lauren well, and the wedding was off. Fiancé gone, stepfather gone, house about to be gone, and every one of those dominoes had my name quietly underneath it, holding it up until I stopped holding it up. 3 weeks after that tasting table, there was a knock on my apartment door. I knew before I opened it. Helen and Lauren stood in my hallway, about as far from that dining room in Indian Hill as two people could get. Helen's makeup was smudged. Lauren looked hollow, her hands shaking, the same hands that used to hold mine on Saturdays. "Can we come in?" Helen asked. I let them in and sat across from them in my one good chair. I'd waited 15 years for this conversation. I could wait one more minute. Lauren slid onto her knees on my living room floor. "Dad, please. I know I hurt you. The venue's gone. We're going to lose the house. Aiden's gone. He didn't even say goodbye. The feds said he forged your name, that he used me to commit bank fraud, and now everything's gone. Please, just release the trust." Helen was crying too. Quiet, controlled, the practiced kind that had worked on plenty of people before me. "We have nowhere else to go. 20 years ago, I had third-degree burns up both arms and nowhere else to go either. Nobody knelt on my floor for me." Then Lauren said the thing I didn't see coming. "I remember Saturdays," she whispered, looking up at me with eyes that for 1 second belonged to that 10-year-old again. "I remember the smell of vanilla. I remember—" She stopped. "Finish the sentence," I said. Something moved behind her eyes, something old, buried under 15 years of her mother's careful reconstruction. For a moment, I thought she'd finally say it. "I remember what you did for me at the plant." She looked down at the carpet instead. Whatever had almost surfaced went back under. That's the moment something in me closed for good. I stood up, walked to my small breakfast table, and sat down. I put both hands flat on the table, palms down, scarred and shiny and twisted, right where neither of them could look away. "You said my hands were too ugly for your wedding day," I said, my voice steady. "But these hands are the only reason you still have a face to cry with right now." Lauren made a sound like the air left her body. "I saved you once, sweetheart. I won't save you again." Nobody moved. I got up, walked past them, and closed the curtain on Erie Avenue's evening lights. I heard Helen behind me, breaking. "Jack, please, we have nowhere." I didn't turn around. I heard the couch creak, footsteps, the door open and close. Quiet. No ring lights this time. Just quiet. "I'll give you the rest quickly, because you've earned the ending." Helen and Lauren were out of the house within the month, into a modest 2-bedroom rental in Norwood, the kind of place I'd lived in most of my life while they had a colonial with a pool. Aiden never resurfaced in Cincinnati. Word came back eventually that the fraud investigation turned into real federal charges, wire fraud, false collateral, and last anyone heard he was in Florida, waiting on a court date he couldn't smooth talk his way out of. The Werners never spoke to Lauren again. Not one call. Just a clean, well-lawyered silence. I never released the trust. Not the wedding money, not the house money. My attorney restructured it, locked it down tighter than before, so that only Lauren herself, as an adult making her own honest choices, could ever touch it again. No stepfather, no mother, no in-law pressure. Just her. If she ever earns her own way back to deserving it, that's not up to me anymore. I still live in that same one-bedroom off Erie Avenue, still drive the same Chevy Malibu, still work the same quiet trade in Blue Ash. Larry still calls me every year around the anniversary. "You did good, Reese," he told me last time. 20 years ago, you did good. I know, Larry. I've always known. It just took the rest of the world a while to catch up. Some Saturdays, when the weather's right, I still walk down to Aglamisa's Brothers and order vanilla, even though I never once actually liked vanilla. I just liked watching her eat it. I sit at the counter alone now, look down at these scarred, twisted, ugly, beautiful hands, and think about a 10-year-old girl on my shoulders yelling, "There's my hero," to a loading dock full of men who believed her completely. I'd still do it again, 1,000,000 times over. That was never the question. The question was whether she'd ever be brave enough to say thank you. She wasn't. Not yet, anyway. But these hands aren't waiting around for it anymore. If you made it this far, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from. I'll see you on the next one.